This video is brought to you by our amazing supporters over at Patreon. Hey everyone, it's Ben from Board2Bits, and this week I'm doing something a little bit different for my video. I'm working on a kind of a deep dive into the transform component, and there's some cool tricks that I've found in there that I wanted to share with you guys. I don't have the entire video done yet, but I did want to share some of the progress I've made, so I'm giving you kind of a sneak preview with one section of it that you'll see, and I should have the whole thing done next week for you. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. So you're probably used to setting a transform's position and getting its position using just the simple transform.position variable, which will obviously give you a vector 3 with the x, y, and z positions. However, there are also three properties you can use that can be helpful, not so much in getting the position, but in getting the vectors that relate to the axes that the transform is currently on. And those are the properties of up, right, and forward. And these are actually pretty easy to describe because right here in the scene view we have this gizmo, and we can see that there's this up, which is the y-axis, this arrow here, and that is kind of what is a visual representation of what transform.up will get you. It's a vector exactly one unit up on this axis. Likewise, right will get you 1 on the x-axis here, and forward will get you 1 on the blue axis. You can get the opposites of these simply by making these negative. And the other thing that's really cool about them, though, what's useful is that this isn't 100% accurate because right now we're in global view. If we go to local view, what will happen is, and then I rotate this like this, say, on the x and the z axes, go back to here. Now we see that this is no longer just on the world's y-axis. It's pointing, in this sort of angled direction, and transform.up will reflect that. It won't give you 0, 1, 0 at this point. It'll give you whatever this particular angle is. And it will normalize it for you, so it'll always be 1 unit away. So though it'll reduce the each value properly so that it has a magnitude of 1. Now, what this is useful for is that we can do things that aren't reliant on being, say, a parent or a child of something where you're going to get that local position and know it immediately. You can just use these three properties and get that information even from elsewhere. So for example, here I've got this unit, which is this cube, and then I've got a leader, which is this little pink sphere. That's sort of like if you were in, say, a flying simulator and you had an enemy ahead of you, and the reticle is kind of helping you by like showing you where you should, shoot to where the enemy will be. That sort of idea. This is kind of following that same idea. What this does is it's focusing. I have this focus object which is focusing on this unit, and it's always going to point ahead of the unit by its speed. You'll notice my unit here has a speed value that I can moderate right here. And so what will happen now is when I hit play, we can't see the cube right now, and I think that's because it's like right just ahead barely of the cube at the moment. But now what I can do is I can rotate this cube, and you'll see that that leader will always follow it, and I can even increase its speed, and it will move forward and back. So what's going on under the hood here that this is able to always follow the front of this cube? Well, if we go into MonoDevelop and go to that script, which I have right here, you'll see that I've got the public focus field so that I can tell it to focus on that cube. And then all that's happening is I'm telling this leader, that sphere, that its position should be equal to the unit's position plus the forward vector, and then just multiplying that by its speed. So it's always going to follow that forward vector. Whatever is forward for that cube, that's where that sphere will appear. Now, what's also really cool about this, you may be familiar with this particular part, but the thing that people don't always realize, if I jump back here for a second and I go transform.forward, and we can see the description here, is that forward, up, right, and forward don't just have a get property, they also have a set, which means that you can actually set the rotation of any object in your game by setting any of those to a particular vector 3 that you want. And here's how that can be really helpful. I'm going to jump over to this. We'll save this second script here, or the second scene here rather, and you'll see that we've got this kind of odd mix of kind of angled cubes, and then we have this pin object. And this pin object is really just meant to be kind of a visualization that we're going to be able to point our cursor, and when we're pointing onto these cubes, we'll see that the pin follows where our mouse is pointing. But in addition to that, what we want it to do is kind of to stick into whichever face it's on, like you would push a push pin in. So how we do that, if we go to our script, and go to the cursor script here, what we see is that I'm just using a simple raycast. So I'm doing a screen point to ray from the main camera, and then I'm just using the mouse position. So that's getting us a ray shooting basically from our camera through wherever our mouse is. And then if that hits any of the blocks that we have, and I created a physics layer for blocks, then once you've hit that, what we're doing is we're setting the position to where we hit it. So that's why the pin is going to go to wherever our mouse is pointing. But then what we're doing is we're taking the pin's up parameter and we're setting it equal to the normal. So whichever face of the cube we're hitting, whichever way that face of the cube is facing, the pin is going to reflect that, and so therefore it's going to stick like directly, so it's perpendicular with that face. So we can see that in action here if I hit play. And I start pointing at these cubes, you'll see that there, so this one's a little bit angled, but then if we go to here, now it's pointing straight up. I can go to this side, and now it's pointing directly into the side. Likewise here, if I can even actually hit right into that crevice there, and it kind of obviously merges with the other mesh there, but that's okay. It's facing the way that we want it to. So this is kind of a cool effect you can use if you're doing anything with like, say you have like a building game and you want the houses and stuff that you're building to kind of align with the terrain that they're on, or even if you're just trying to make sure that a player is kind of properly aligned to a slope that they're on, you can use, like I say, this up, the right, and the forward properties to actually not just get what angle that they're leaning toward, but you can actually set that angle as well so that you get the appropriate position for them. So that is up, down, and right. Let's move on to the next section.